All right, our last presentation of the day is Bridging Cross-Functional Teams with Atlassian, and you're in for a great one. Your presenter is Ben, and the last time he was in Barcelona, he was actually dressed as Doc Brown from Back to the Future and ran through the seats. Clearly not the case today, but you never know.
Thank you, Adam. Well, it's the end of the summit, just about. We have Bash, Summit Live, and then Bash after this. So work with me, and let's talk about building cross-functional teams. My name is Ben Mackie, and I'm the head of engineering for growth at Atlassian. And I've been an engineering leader for my nearly 5 years at Atlassian in several different teams. So have some interesting insights to share with you about cross-functional teams. When I think about cross-functional teams, this is a favorite quote of mine. On our own, we are marshmallows and dried spaghetti, but together we can become something bigger. Wait, what are we talking about here? Marshmallows, dried spaghetti, they sound pretty different, don't they? And if we bring them together, how could they become something bigger? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about today. Not too much about marshmallows and dried spaghetti, but about the uniqueness of cross-functional teams and how bringing them together, all the different perspectives, working together, connecting those teams, really can make amazing things happen and enable teams to achieve more than they could as individuals. In 2016, I took on a bigger role in Confluence in the leadership team. And we were a new leadership team. We had several new members, and we were super excited about the plans and the vision that we had, and we were eager to get into planning. This is not the leadership team, this is the whole team, with the leaders sprinkled in there. But we were eager to get on with things and dive into planning. You could say we were those marshmallows and dried spaghetti, and we wanted to build a bridge. Now, this should be a bridge, but it kind of looks like the people who were building this maybe rushed into things a little bit, maybe didn't quite figure out how everything was going to hold together, and it can't even hold up its own weight, let alone fulfill the purpose that it was intended to. And so it was as we dived into planning. Luckily, though, we recognized this quickly, and we stopped and we considered what could we do here? How could we come together and work out how we can work together as a cross-functional leadership team to make sure that the planning we were about to embark on would be successful and that the team could successfully execute on those plans. So that's what I'd like to cover today, are some insights from that experience and from others about bringing those cross-functional teams together. And to do that, I'd cover 4 topics. Firstly, connecting. How can we connect cross-functional teams, bring them together as a team and as humans? Secondly, how can we explore those rich perspectives that come from each of the members in that team and to really harness that, to bring the plan together in Converge, to bring those perspectives together and form a plan that everyone has confidence in, and then how to maintain that connection as the team goes into execution mode on that plan. So let's first talk about connecting. If there's one thing I'd like to take away from this talk, it's this: that a connected team of unique individuals has unlimited potential. And we've heard a bit about that at Summit already. We've heard about the importance of different perspectives and bringing them together. So this really is a good dovetail for many of the things you've heard in Summit. So what are those unique perspectives that come into a cross-functional team? 3 common perspectives that we see in Atlassian in software teams can be described in this way. So you have the product perspective, which is viability. Is the product going to deliver value, and is it going to make the product successful in the market? You also have the design perspective, or desirability. Are users going to want the product? Are they going to enjoy the product and engage with it? And then you have the engineering perspective or feasibility. Can you build the product and can you maintain it over time? So this helps illustrate that when you bring those different perspectives together and specialists in those fields, it's going to be messy. There'll be some agreement and overlap, but then there'll be the need to listen to those different perspectives and form a plan that really harnesses them. So how do we do that? How do we do that, even as humans, when making that happen can require a lot of energy? There was a study recently across US organizations that determined one factor that increased, when it was present, increased everyone's energy in cross-functional teams, doubling it. It also increased their productivity by 50%. And what do you think that attribute is? And I'll give you a clue. It isn't coffee. Right. Purpose? No, not quite. Anyone else want to? All right, I'll dive in. Close? Trust. Trust. And that can be displayed in several facets. Firstly, assuming best intentions. Secondly, to acknowledge the roles and expertise of the different members that come together in that team. And thirdly, open communication. I'd like maybe to just it's the last talk of the day, so just super quick, have a think about those three things. And I would like, if you believe that the first one is the most important for cross-functional teams, or that resonates with you, would you mind just standing quickly? No? Either no one wants to stand up, or they've picked another one. All right, number 2, acknowledging roles and expertise. Who here thinks that that's the most important? All right, got one there? Got a few there? Okay, what about the last one? Open communication and observation of needs. Wow, that's really cool. So everyone's really enjoying that openness. So and really thinks that's important. Well, I mean, they're all important, but that was just a really great observation. But how can we build those things? How can we build that open communication? How can we build that trust in these areas for our team? Well, you've heard about the Atlassian playbook, no doubt, here at Summit. And one of those plays in the Atlassian playbook is called roles and responsibilities. And here's an actual diagram from one of those instances of the play that I was involved in. While it's easy to run plays like roles and responsibilities with a whiteboard, you can also use products or tools like Confluence to facilitate these plays. So here's an example of a page capturing a roles and responsibilities play. And here you can see the steps of the play, and the page. You can base this on a template in Confluence, and it can guide you through the steps in that play. Now, every member of the team can capture their role, and a great feature of Confluence is collaborative editing, where you can edit at the same time. So you can imagine the group, the team, with the page open, typing in, this is what I do, like, this is what I'm responsible for. And if we drill in, we can see here, this is a real one, so this is me actually describing what my role was, and that we're building and running high-quality, reliable services. I'm looking into staffing and execution and dependencies and tracking. Sometimes it makes you realize, gee, we're actually doing quite a lot. And also general leadership and developing leaders in a team. And this is what's core to what I do. And what I'm saying is this is what I bring to the team. But I'm also seeking to understand, well, what are you saying over there and what are you saying over there? I want to understand more about what your role is. And let's talk about it. Let's align on those things. And then the next step in the play is to then openly share about where we're getting support in that role from the people around us and the broader team, and where we still need help, where we're looking for more support. And that really creates empathy in the group as we begin to openly share these things. And it does require trust, right? It's building that trust because we're getting honest, we're getting real about whether the team is working and whether all the parts are working together. So after that role information and support and those kinds of things are shared, the next step is to map out the communication that's happening in the team. Are the interactions between the individuals in the team and outside of the team, are they supporting the roles and functions within the team? Are there too many point-to-point conversations happening and not enough sharing and collaboration? Or maybe everything's a shared collaboration and it's slowing everyone down. That's what these kinds of exercises highlight. So, trust. Ultimately, that's what is being asked here of the group. But is that enough? And you called out openness before as an element of trust, and that really is the bookend to trust. It dovetails with the trust. Because when I'm saying, hey, this is what I'm doing for the team, that doesn't mean I'm going to run off and squirrel away and work on those things and never share that. No, I've been entrusted with that, so then I need to respond with openness. I need to respond with the sharing of the progress of what I'm doing for the team. And I need to give feedback to others who are doing the same, and they can give feedback to me. And all the while, I'm being intentional about continuing that process we started with of understanding what's going on in those other worlds and how I can help, and likewise, how I'm getting support. So, for the roles and responsibilities play, we talked about using Confluence as a tool to help. I'd like to talk about another tool, and it's Trello Day. So let's talk about Trello and how it helps with openness. A team like a cross-functional team or a leadership team, they're not going to meet every day. They're probably going to meet weekly or every second week. And so if we've established that trust, and then I've just talked about openness, how are we going to maintain that connection and that sharing when we're not in the same room together? That's where a tool like Trello can really help. It can also help if the team members are remote or cross-geo as well, in different countries. So often there are common topics that the team discusses, and Trello has a neat feature called labels which can define those topics, and you can quickly filter a Trello board by labels as well. So maybe you're going to come together as a leadership team or a cross-functional team and have a theme for your meeting and talk about, say, craft and operations. Using a Trello board can also keep the team focused on getting stuff done. Ultimately, outside the meeting, you want the team to progress actions that further the mission of the team. And so this team helps members to openly share their progress and keep the rest of the team informed. So the good thing about these Trello boards is that you can see progress at a high level, but you can also dive into details. So let's look into this particular details. I'm an engineering manager, so you're going to see engineering topics like this one, definition of done, working on a definition of done. It's something we're actually revising at the moment. So Trello integrates with Confluence, and so we can see here a link off to the Confluence page from this card where you can go to and see the actual product that's being built, because in this case it is a page in Confluence. Trello also allows you to define the subtasks for that overall task, and so you can clearly see who's next in terms of the next step, who maybe needs who has the ball, I guess, in terms of the next step, and communicate that back with the team. And you can also see, have comments be easily added to provide feedback or ask questions about the work. And the important thing here is that this all happens without the need to meet. And let's say you are a different member of the team, and you just want that visibility and want to understand what's happening. Like a lot of tools like this, Trello is going to send notifications to you. So you could be on the train, maybe on the commute, and get that information that could be your point of check-in with what's happening with your team. So I've talked about how to really not have meetings, but how do we then combine asynchronous tools like Trello with meetings to really make cross-functional teams work? It really comes down to these three components. I've talked about asynchronous updates, which means the team can stay updated when they're not face-to-face. But when they come together, another useful tactic is a roundtable. Each person in the team can go around and they can share the most important update. And once again, it shouldn't be about like keep getting people up to date. I mean, sometimes it is, but that shouldn't be the focus. The assumption is everyone who's coming is up to date because they are plugged in to that system. And so instead, it's important to pick something that's impactful to the group. Pick something that either needs help from the group to make a decision or to progress an action. And then the other tactic is working groups. Don't rabbit hole in trying to then progress work in that short meeting time. Be quick to realize when that's starting to happen and decide who is going to take that task and form a working group, whether that be in that group or with other specialists, and take that away. And that will become another card on the Trello board, which will flow communication back. So using these tactics, you can have really effective short meetings, cross-functional meetings, but then have a lot of progress happen between those meetings and really focus on making key decisions when you are together. So, a check on connection. Are you connected enough to separate and explore different work streams? So the test of connection is, can you actually separate? Think about that, and we'll summarize these points at the end as well, so you can pick a focus area. So now let's talk about exploring. Once we've established that connection, established that trust, we're ready to more deeply explore different aspects of our strategy for the coming quarter, year, whatever it is. And here's a nice diagram to explain that exploration, that separation, deeper exploration, and then we'll come back together and converge to form a shared plan. So as I said, I'm an engineering manager, so I'd like to explore some of the tactics we used as an engineering team as part of that cross-functional structure to go deeper before converging. This is a photo of us midway through one of these exercises. We call them offsites at Atlassian, and that's because we really do like to find another space outside the office, free from the distractions of everyday work, and to really focus on the topic at hand. And so from an engineering perspective, we were wanting to explore some really meaty architectural concerns. There were some really different ways in which we could build the product because of the size of the vision was large. You know, we wanted to build some transformational features. So we really needed to be sure about this. We didn't just want to kind of go along with the product vision, but not be able to build it and only realize that 2 or 3 months in. The workshops that are off-site involved many different exercises, and that's what I'll go through here. One exercise was aligning on drivers. And that's a really good way to start these kinds of workshops off. What's important to us? And that's contextual to the team's current situation, what's happening inside the team's environment, outside the team's environment. And people factors, that's an interesting one. For this particular workshop, the choices we were going to make would really fundamentally change how the team was structured. So in this case, the people factors were decided to be important by the group. Now, these are all aggregate results. You know, there was a process of people discussing and voting and then coming together with a single set of drivers. With the drivers agreed upon, we could explore the solutions. And I think the most important thing about exploring solutions is to intentionally pick contrasting ones. Don't pick 2 or 3 that are really just variations of each other. Separating groups and really explore different ones, and then maybe even swap over so that you are kind of arguing the case for the other side. So for, say, software, it could be, one end could be we're going to assemble based on pre-built or bought components versus building everything. But pick 2 that are obviously relevant, or 3 that are obviously relevant to your situation. And then finally, we rated the solutions according to the drivers. Everyone came up and put a dot on these different factors, where they thought, how they thought that particular solution, or each solution, we did it for several, rated against their drivers. And this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because we can see 2 things. One thing we can see is that there is some more alignment around some areas, but a wider range on others. And so just like planning poker, people can then talk about why they voted on the outlier, and there could be some discussion and alignment. The second thing is that this particular solution rated low on the people scale. And if you recall, that was the most important driver. So it stood to reason that this particular solution was not the one we were going to go with. Or, as I've often said in that situation, if we have to, we realize, well, maybe our drivers weren't right, but the main thing is that they do align at the end of the day. So we've done all this great exploration, this deep exploration, and we think, yeah, this is the way we should plan how we're going to architect the product and build the product to fulfill the vision. But how do we surface that back to the team? I mean, we've been entrusted with our role to go and do this. But how do we both inform the rest of the team and bring them into that deeper exploration? One way we can do that is by sharing those outcomes in Confluence. And that's a really simple process where we can put all the information on the page and include the different pictures as well of the whiteboards and everything we did there. So 3 tactics that really can allow us to remain connected are what we call guardrails. When we were actually doing that engineering offsite, we started off with the head of product doing a presentation about product strategy, so we made sure that that was an input. Secondly, we believe in sustainable value as well. So whatever we were going to do, the customer always had to be in mind. That's one of our core values at Atlassian. And we had to make sure whatever we're going to do was going to deliver value regularly. And finally, people. I mentioned before the people score. It's very easy to get rigid around cost and value around ideas. But it's also a good idea to bring the people score in just to make sure that everyone's views are being met. So here's check number 2 for explore. Is planning leveraging the depth of expertise in the team? Maybe everyone just rushed through and just came up with a plan, but did you really listen to the engineering view? Did you really listen to the design view? Did you really listen to the product view, or is everyone kind of agreeing? Maybe it's not those 3, by the way, whatever those 3 or 4 or however many are for your situation. Okay, so we've done that deeper exploration. It's time for the team to converge on a shared plan. It's important that everything we do next as we perform that build that shared plan, ladders up to a shared objective. Well, we call it laddering up. So how does each piece, the value that it delivers, how is that going to add up to the overall vision? Here's another example of a workshop where different functions are coming together to form that shared plan. So we're doing another offsite here. This time there was an engineering workshop, there was a product workshop, design workshop, and here's where we're bringing it all together. Now, these workshops, one way to structure them is that there's a bit of a sharing session earlier on in the day where all those deeper explorations are shared, and then there's more interactive exercises where that shared plan is formed. So let's explore a few of the aspects of this particular workshop. We have a term at Atlassian we call the big rocks. So what are the big components of the vision? They may translate to projects, they may translate to initiatives. It depends on the size of what we're doing. But it's along that picture of, if you're going to fill a jar with rocks, you start with the big ones and then the small ones. And they cover all functional interests and converge on overall cost and value. And note that we're not just talking about one facet here, like complexity or scope, but we're also connecting everything back with the customer value. Another useful tactic for these kinds of workshops is a parking lot. This prevents us from rabbit holing. Maybe we're getting too caught into one of those deeper issues coming from one of the functions. And so anyone in the group can call that out, and it goes up on the parking lot. And then the team moves on. And of course, it's really important when you have a component like this to make sure you do re-rank and revisit those at a later point. And a third interesting tactic for these kinds of workshops is a risk board. So it's similar to a parking lot, but someone's worried about something like this. This may or may not happen, but it's going to take a lot of time for that group together to explore that fully. So let's get it up there. Let's say whether it's going to be high impact or high probability, typical risk things, and move on. Confluence, again, can play an important part in capturing the outcomes of cross-functional offsites. And they, again, can inform other stakeholders of progress. And that's part of tools like Confluence in terms of openness, is that maybe other teams outside of the team that's come together for this shared plan has information or is connected with this overall initiative or project. So this helps communicate it more broadly in the organization. Those big rocks that were on those pieces of butcher paper can be converted into pages, and Confluence has a neat feature called Page Properties, which enables you to roll up those child pages into a single display. So that top screen there is purely an aggregation. It's not been retyped out. It's important when we're starting to think about how we're quantifying some of these big rocks to make sure we have a common language, right? What do we mean when we say that it's highly complex or extra large complex? What is the size of the team or the unit of measure? And what do we mean by confidence? I like the exercises where you're kind of doing that paper, rock, scissors. You know, is it good? Is it medium? Is it not good? And then you have those discussions around whether you're on the same page or not. And then we can track convergence as well. I hope you're getting the trend here, but a lot of the tactics that I use here are about continuing to go. Like, let's track where we're not quite there or agreed, but we will come back to it. But let's be open about that as we go. So maybe there's 2 items there which have medium confidence because there was a risk that got put up on the risk board. That's okay, you know. But we get that job done on that day, and then we'll come back to it in a follow-up session rather than just getting through to the end of the day and only getting halfway through. But what if there are items that are quite deep and need to be explained? How do we then get buy-in across those functions in that process? Some of these tactics seem pretty dry. Oh yeah, well, we're just going to put everything up on the board and everyone's just going to agree and understand each other's views. And it's never really that simple, is it? There's a television show in the United States called Shark Tank, and I believe in the UK there's one called Dragon's Den. And we ran a play once to help create empathy across the functions for the ideas that we're exploring in engineering. And I know you might be thinking, well, what does Shark Tank have to do with empathy? Because there's not always a lot shown on those shows. But what we actually did here was we had our engineering ideas that we came up with in our engineering workshop, and then we actually got the other functions, that people from product and design and marketing, to actually pitch back to us those engineering ideas, right? And so that was a great way of getting empathy, in that they were actually promoting the value that we had found. And then we invested $10 million that day in those different ideas, and there was a clear winner. Not real money, obviously, but it was a fun exercise that created empathy across functions. And so it may not be that exact exercise, but the point being is, like, how can you find ways to maybe be a bit social, but help different perspectives be understood. So after checking these exercises, after checking all these things and converging and forming those shared plans, how do you know if you've done it? Like, how do you know how well you've done in bringing these different perspectives together? Is it laddering up to the shared objective? Like, whatever that definition of success is for your plan, how do you gauge it? Well, one way is to measure confidence. And so you could have members of the group and everyone counts to 3 and maybe 4. Is it out of 5? You know, is it 1? Is it 2? How confident are you? And this is just a really quick way of saying, well, okay, is everyone actually confident that what they thought was important coming in? And what have they learned about what was important for everyone else coming in has found its way into the plan? And you may want to do this exercise twice, as is shown here. So in this case, we ran it at the start of the workshop and then at the end, and we could see that the confidence had increased, but maybe there were still some areas we needed to explore. So, check 3 for convergence. So are all functions confident in the plan? You've got that shared plan, but maybe you rush through some things. You're trying to move fast, but maybe there's a few risks up there still. Maybe there's a few parking lot items that didn't really get addressed, but you got through, good velocity, but is there confidence? Okay, we're nearly there. We're nearly there, folks. So let's talk about maintaining the team, maintaining that connection. We started with that connection by bringing the functions together. We then separated and explored, and then we converged on a plan. But how do we maintain that connection across the team so that execution is going to be successful? An analogy is like a journey in a car. You've tuned the car's engine, you've packed the cars with provisions. However, how good is it if we won't make the distance? It's going to be rather disappointing if you break down a few miles down the road. So, another play in the Atlassian playbook is the health monitor, and that's a great play for maintaining that connection. Here's an example from a different project to the one I've been describing. It was a very large project in Atlassian, and there were a lot of teams involved, a lot of dependencies, and obviously we're all going fast, and we weren't. There was a lot of communication happening, but we weren't sure, well, what is really urgent? When this piece needs to go before that one, this team's saying it's important, this other team's saying their piece is important, and that's why we had to come together and do a health monitor as a leadership team. And part of the health monitor is evaluating a number of different areas like velocity, decision making, and dependencies, and so on, and then picking focus areas. And I picked up one of the high priority actions here, which was that developers just really asked them to go up and speak to the people that they needed to unblock them. It was an interesting situation where they just weren't sure about, well, hang on, is what I'm being blocked on important enough for me to really go up and disturb someone? So the action I took in this case was I talked with a number of people about this to make sure that was the right solution, but then to write a blog. Casper from Atlassian did a great talk earlier today on blogs and Confluence as a communication tool. And so this is an example in a similar vein where I was talking about really being clear when you are urgent. Just clarify when you have concerns about responsiveness or a lack of from another team, and to respectfully escalate blockers. Just saying it's actually okay to escalate. You should do it if we're going to actually make this project schedule. And Confluence has a really great way of getting feedback, the like button at the bottom of the page there, and that gives me confidence when I'm communicating that, okay, the teams are getting this, they're engaging, and I don't need to do too much more there, and that did actually work well. Health monitors aren't just run once, you rerun them periodically. And you can see them change, the results change over time. So you can see there that the colors are changing from the right to the left. Health monitors are great, but there's two really important things you need to think about when you run a lot of them or run them periodically. And that's these 2 points. The first one is to stay objective. It can be easy when you do a health monitor and you keep doing one to start thinking about things that could be wrong. Or worrying about things that maybe haven't happened yet. So the first point is stay objective. If it's about maybe we're not managing risks well enough, that's fine, but a good question to ask is, hey, what's a specific example of that? Let's just reground back to things we've really observed. The second point is a bias for action. The point of these kinds of health monitors isn't to get them all green. My observation is that they rarely get green for a high-performing team because the moment you've improved something, the bar goes higher. And you know what? That's great. if the team's continually doing that and raising the bar, then that's what's important. And the way they raise the bar is by acting. So I gave that example before about picking that focus area and acting. That's what's important. And when we created some team goals around health monitors, it wasn't about getting them all green. It was about regularly thinking about health, being objective, and acting, taking an action. So, is the team set up to last the distance? Is it regularly thinking about the health of its engine, so to speak? So, in summary, I'll just cover the 4 areas and just have a think about your team. Have a think about your situation. Is it a project you've done, or is it a project you're about to do? Is it a big plan, a big vision, whatever's next for you? And just think of which of these 4 areas your team needs to focus on. Is it connecting? So do you think for your situation that your team maybe needs to work on that trust and openness? Do you need to think about that roles and responsibility play? Is it that maybe you're planning but you're not really leveraging the richness of the different perspectives that are in your team? Do you maybe need to give a bit more freedom to do some of those deeper explorations before you form your plan? Convergence. Are you forming the plan in a way that is giving confidence? Are you listening to, are you thinking about the different roles that are being represented, and are they being represented in your plan? Or maybe you need to really come together more when you're in that planning phase. Or is it maintaining? Is it that, well, maybe you start off well, but things tend to wander off at that point, and you're wondering, well, how come we kind of created that connection, but we didn't maintain it? At some point, things didn't work as well. So I encourage you to think about that. Which is it one of those plays? Is it the health monitor? Is it roles and responsibilities? Or is it just a better way of doing workshops and offsites that will help your cross-functional teams work together? So this is a bridge. And it is made from marshmallows and dried spaghetti. And not only is it holding its own weight, you can't quite see there, but it's holding 5 kilograms as well. So you can build a bridge, a strong bridge, out of marshmallows and dried spaghetti. So remember the bridge, and remember that you can do amazing things when you bring different perspectives together as a team. A connected team of unique individuals has unlimited potential. So many of the plays I've talked about today are in the Atlassian playbook. Feel free to take a picture of this slide if you want to refer to it later. But that URL will take you to the Atlassian playbook. And so with that, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Please make sure to take the survey in the mobile app to let Ben know how he did. This concludes the breakout sessions for this year's summit. We look forward to seeing you again next year. If you'd like to attend Ship It Live, that's going to be taking place in the keynote room shortly, so make sure to grab a seat. Thanks.